Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Vegan View. Today is super special because we have the magnificent Chef Korby on the show. Yay! Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
So can you tell our viewers a little bit more about you and your journey on veganism?
Absolutely. I started a journey into veganism back in 2001.
Wow.
You might be our longest vegan we've had on the show.
Yeah.
Oh no, we had a lifer.
We had a lifer, that's right.
Yeah. Beat by one person.
I mean, I know some people have been doing it since birth.
Yeah.
It's never really a competition. But
But it's always impressive.
It is, considering, it took some really serious health matters to occur for me to actually decide to make this change. Yeah. And it was something gradual. But during my teens, actually all throughout my youth, I had a variety of health issues that would just come up. And I think sort of the narrative within my family was that I was sickly, or maybe even like injury prone, or prone to sickness of some sort. And I kind of believed that narrative, and no one ever really sat me down and was like, hey, if you do this, the quality of your health will improve. Wow. I don't know, you reach a certain age, I grew up in a very conservative Caribbean household. My family's from Haiti. I was always the one that sort of deviated in terms of I was the youngest, but I also did a lot of things very different from my older siblings. And being away at college at 21 years old, you get to kind of experiment with what type of adult you want to be in the world. So what started as an early adult experimentation, it's a key part of how my life and my business is structured around. So yeah.
Wow.
Really
I have goosebumps. That is so powerful.
Yeah.
So you had health issues that kind of led you to veganism. Do you want to elaborate on how you came to that as kind of being a healing process for it?
Yeah, sure. So when I was a teenager, I used to get really intense pain, in this part of my body, the sort of abdominal region of my body. And I always had issues digesting food, particularly dairy. And all the while that's happening, I also have an undeclared love for food. I really loved food since I was a child. Yeah. The very simplest thing too, I just loved food. And that love of food made me say to myself, okay, maybe I can do this better. Getting sick, I was hospitalized for maybe 3 months during my senior year of high school because I had gallstones. But prior to that point where I got admitted into the hospital, there was a series for maybe 2 or 3 years. I was constantly being sent to the ER. And in the middle of the night, 1 o'clock in the morning, with the most incredible pain that I mentioned in the abdominal region. And I kind of knew that my life didn't have to be this way. And I kind of knew there had to be a better option. And, between the home cooked and good intentioned meals my mom was making at home and the fast food that was I'm from New York City, I'm from Brooklyn. So eating fast food is actually part of the culture, of living in New York. As soon as you hit the corner of my block, there's a pizzeria and a Chinese restaurant and a variety of other fast food things. And this was just normal, the way people operated in my neighborhood. And again, having the opportunity to go away, I went to the University at Albany, which is in upstate New York. And coming from a Caribbean family, I think I had a very idealized notion of what higher education, what my experience was going to be like. I literally thought I was going to this like elevated intellectual space for young people. I literally, like coming from an immigrant family, sometimes your perception of how things are from TV.
Yeah.
And I literally, whatever I consumed on TV, I thought that my experience was going to be that. And then when I got to college, it's not to say they weren't really high intellectual people, but that wasn't the centerpiece. That wasn't the focus. It's like, let's get, college is like, let's get wasted. And it was a bit of a culture shock. But in the midst of that, I have to be honest, like I found an interesting group of people in my college that were a little bit older than me, that were sort of very centered in African culture, very centered in sort of like other creative expressions like poetry and painting and all this. I was never part of that core group, but I always admired them from afar. And a few, I guess, prominent people in that group on my college campus were vegan. And I was like, what's that all about? Like, you know, I was always investigating it. And I think early on too, I dated a woman who was part of sort of that group or adjacent to that group. So she brought a lot of that to me. And then shortly after, I befriended, and I'm still friends with him. There's this cat I know who's a psychologist in Maine, who was my neighbor upstairs. We were just college students. He was a grad student at the time. And he would make really great vegan meals. And it kind of showed me the way. I was like, oh, wow, this guy's doing it. Like, you know, I could do this. Again, very radical thing to be doing back in like the year 2001. Very radical thing. You know, it's, I always tell people, if I could just say this, I always tell people like, in the year 2001, telling people that you're living a plant-based or vegan lifestyle, especially like from a Haitian Caribbean household that I came from, that's almost like telling your family that you're dropping out of college to join the circus, and there's no offense to people who do this, but you know, you dumpster dive for all your meals. You know what I mean? If you literally lay that out in front of the family I come from, they're like, okay, he's officially crazy. So
Wow, that's crazy. So you were intrigued by this friend of yours, and then at what point were you like, I'm gonna try doing this myself? And like, did you just kind of dive into it? Did you just start making your own vegan meals, or how did you go about that?
That's a great question. I think it was all gradual for me. It was all gradual steps. That love of food that stayed constant was always present, and I also love making food and sharing it with people. You know, so like, growing up, this is a deviation from your question a little bit, but growing up in my house, it seemed like the egg sandwich was like the endearing act in my house, one of the endearing acts, and everybody made an egg sandwich in a slightly different way. But that tradition of making an egg sandwich kind of transferred into the older version of me, and I was like, okay, like I enjoy like making food for people. I enjoy learning about food. My first attempts were not totally to just go vegan. It was just more like, okay, I'm gonna stop eating pork. I had a good friend of mine in college that was Muslim, so the not eating pork aspect was already adjacent. Like, you know, we used to eat a lot of Indian food at the time and go to the falafel spot a lot. Like, you know, we're just college students, so, you know, going to those spots were like a good, because not that I ate so much pork, but like I just thought that was interesting that my friend really lived a lifestyle that there was no pork involved. So I kind of adapted to that, and then kind of gradually started meeting people who were like, I guess the equivalent of what they call pescatarian. So I got cool with some people that were on that wave, but they didn't label it no kind of way. It was just, I noticed that a lot of times when we ate food, it was like shrimp and fish. So I kind of went in that direction, but gradually just sort of like getting things off of the list of things I ate. But I will say this, as I removed the animal meats from my diet, I started to eat a lot of soy, which that had its implications and that has its setbacks as well. But it's just been a journey and process. But that was the immediate, just gradually getting rid of some things. And also the body has to learn how to become nourished and satiated without meat. There's like a transformation that happens, you know, that I experienced. I even noticed like certain sensory things, like my sense of taste and smell changed.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that you say that, you know, you eased into it like that. That was actually my similar journey as well. I started out, pork was the same thing. I cut that out first.
Because I had a Muslim friend in middle school, and I was like, oh, I don't want her to feel left out, and there must be a reason why her and her family don't eat this. So it was like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, I cannot eat that.
I mean, I really think it sets you up for success, and I think in this world of like social media where we're sharing a lot of like, you know, vegan content, people get intrigued by it and they think they just have to jump into veganism right away. And that's just not realistic for most people. Of course, there are going to be people out there who can do it and kill it and like be totally fine. But I would say for the most part, learning how to kind of like replace these animal products with things that are still going to satiate you is such a process, and giving yourself that grace too to just like work through it.
I just love how heavily influenced you were by the people around you more than
100%.
anything. It wasn't like, you know, for a lot of people, for me, for example, it was a documentary. I watched Earthlings and I was like, never going back. That's it. But like the people around you influenced you so much and like kind of showed you the way. That's really cool.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think another key thing that I have to point out, like I started to embrace like this, like my spiritual identity kind of around the same time, and I'm a Rastafari, and most people know our culture for reggae music and cannabis, which
and Rasta pasta.
you can say that. You can say that. she was happy to say that. She's like, Rasta pasta.
It's so good.
It's so good. Exactly. So like, yes, you know, so these amongst other things, but like many people might not recognize that, you know, and Bob Marley, these are the things people might know off the top, but it's a really deep and rich culture that has many layers to it. And similar to any other like spiritual practice, like whether it's a Buddhist or something like that, or a Hindu, it's a similar type of thing. But one of the lifestyle practices within the Rastafari way of life, we call it Ital, which is basically a plant-based vegan lifestyle. If you really get to the root of it, like real Ital food, it's mostly raw food. It's mostly raw food. That's, you know, that's an interpretation of the Ital way, like that.
I guess I'm on Ital right now.
Yeah.
I've been raw for the last, I don't know how many days, but
You're glowing.
thank you.
All of y'all are glowing. You know?
That vegan lifestyle. Yeah, I've definitely like been, like when I went to Jamaica and stuff, I remember seeing on the menu like Ital soup, and like I remember asking about it, and they said like Ital means health or something.
Yeah, Ital means vital. You know?
Vital, I love that. This is so cool.
So it's vitality food. And so around the time, like, you know, I made this transition, this personal aspect of my life is also sort of, everything is timing, right? All these things are kind of happening at the perfect timing. But in addition to that, while I'm making this transition in my professional life, like I used to work in the music industry, I used to be a music journalist, like back when I was in college. And in addition to that, between like my immediate friends and my immediate circle of people I'm around, I'm not really catching a lot of reinforcing and supportive sounds and words, you know what I mean? Like from people, I'm getting a lot of criticism. I'm getting a lot of, you're gonna hurt yourself, you don't know what you're doing type of comments. But I will say it was a learning process because like I used to eat so much tofu. And again, this is no shots at anybody that eats tofu. Like this is not a personal attack. But like I've had to learn, first of all, what works for my body. So first of all, what kind of is the general things that I should be eating? What is the sort of practice that I should follow? But then within that, what works with my body? What does my body digest? Like the time that we're in right now, like I'm a big proponent of just great locally sourced produce. Like I don't believe we need to focus our attention on making like lab science project food. Like I don't really believe that that's the way. I understand that that's like becoming really big in the food industry. You know, I've worked with pro athletes here in LA. I've worked with celebrities, and I say that to say all across the board, people have impressions that vegan food is going to be fake meat. People
that's true.
And I'm so not fake meat. Again, if you're doing fake meat, do what you got to do, because fake meat helped me during my transition out of vegan food. Like, you know, and there were a couple of Ital spots in Brooklyn that also helped me on the journey because they were right around the corner from where I was staying at the time. And a lot of them made fake meat, but some of them made some really good, like Jamaican style. You know, man, incredible. incredible.
It's interesting that you say that because when I first went vegan, I've been vegan for 12 years, but even 12 years ago, it was like tofu. It wasn't, there wasn't Beyond, there wasn't Impossible and all that.
Yeah.
And now, once all that started popping up and seeing it at fast food places like Del Taco and Burger King has the burger and all that, it's like so exciting. So I started going and eating it all the time, and then I started feeling horrible. And I was like, wait, I remember when I started this, I was eating mostly like fresh vegetables and making like veggie stews and just eating healthier. And now I'm like, wait, I need to like go back to the root of where I started because I felt so good. And so it's like I'm happy that all of that exists for the cruelty aspect of it.
Right.
You know, less animals are being hurt, but it's definitely not like a replacement that you should be eating all the time.
Yeah, I think we just like as long-term vegans kind of like we just got so excited. Like, oh my god, I can eat chicken nuggets that actually taste like chicken nuggets and don't taste like, you know, paper. You know, it's exciting, but I've definitely
I feel like because we all went vegan a really long time ago, like we had an advantage almost that there wasn't as many options because we did have to kind of figure it out sometimes. You know, you couldn't just drive through a Burger King and get a vegan burger like you can today. And now it is so accessible that I do think that like maybe people who are trying veganism, like they're just solely relying on that. Like sure, we had the option to kind of do that helped the transition, make it easier. But I think they're forgetting how important it is to have whole foods and be the bulk of your diet. And it's so frustrating when people use that as an argument as to why they're not vegan. Oh, well, it's all processed, it's all fake, it's all full of fake oils and soy and all this stuff. And it's
might as well eat I've heard the thing, like, I might as well eat real meat because that's just as bad.
Exactly, I've heard that too.
I hear that argument all the time.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I think even the word vegan itself is very charged. It's very charged and it can be very polarizing. Like, I remember when I was younger, I wouldn't necessarily introduce myself to people as like, hey, I'm Korby, I'm vegan. But like maybe if I were working a new job and we had like a breakout session where people like introducing themselves and kind of like describing themselves, in the past, I might have like brought that up as like an identifier. But I recognized it wasn't really a great identifier for me because there was maybe a whole conclusive line of thought that was suggested, or whoever's the recipient of my conversation will feel like, oh, okay, he's one of these types of people. And I didn't really love that either. And these days I'm more focused on sometimes when I present food, I don't even want to use very much language outside of food. I just really try to present
for real
it as
though.
Food. And it's I'm happy to see where we're at though right now at the same time because so as a creative, as a chef, like it's easy because again, this is a medium, I don't know, this is a culinary style that there's so much room for stuff. There's so many different interpretations and it's great, but it's very easy in anything you do to kind of get stuck and not feel like there's anything new. Like it's weird, it's this paradox. On the one hand, there's so much room to create, but as a creative, you might feel like, oh, I've been there, done that, there's nothing new to create. But I'm happy to say that I just had an experience with a friend the other day. It was my friend's birthday, and we went to a place in Venice, and we had a variety of things at this restaurant, and our minds were equally blown, you know what I mean? Like, it was just like, wow, this is a really cool interpretation. So, I don't know, I just bring that up because if at any time I get to a point where I'm hitting a wall creatively, I just have to always remind myself there's all kinds of frontiers and things that I haven't done and things that I haven't experienced. And not only that, if I hit a wall, go experience something. Go, and we're fortunate to live in this city where there's so many options. And go experience something and don't be so caught up in my ego in that no one's as good as me. Like, no. Like, everyone is doing their own thing. Like, I could only be the best that I can be. You know what I mean? It's not about my best versus anybody's best. Just be the best I can be and go experience other people's best. I don't really love to be competitive with food. I may be more competitive in other areas of my life, but I really seek to use my gifts to inspire people, to empower people,
Not to backtrack too much, but I
Sure,
just
sure.
love what you said so much about how you don't really like to, even when you're making food, you don't even really like to talk about like it being vegan so much as it's just food. You just call it food. I love that so much because it is food at the end of the day. Like, and it's not vegan food, it's food.
It's
you
food,
know?
and
And
it's
if
real
anything,
food.
we should be reframing our mindset of like, these are the non-vegan options, are animals food? Are they food? You know, like that's something that we should be questioning to ourselves, because just because we've done it for so many years, for so long, does that actually still mean that it's food? Like we have to really ask ourselves these questions, and to like say that vegan food is not food, it is. Like it doesn't need to be called vegan food.
I also think when you present something as this is vegan, so people automatically
Already.
already think less than. They're already like lowering their expectation of it.
And
And
I
they're
would
already judging it. They're already like, maybe this would be better if it had this. And it's like, no, it's because you said vegan. So they're just looking for something to be wrong with
I
it.
agree with you.
And I would love for you to elaborate on like some of your favorite dishes that
I was
you've
gonna
made
ask
too.
that too, and I wanted to ask, like, knowing us shortly, like, what's the dish you would make us three tourist girls?
Oh man, you guys are tourists. Lately, I've been in a real deep pasta space.
Love
Me
pasta.
too, every day.
Pasta's everything.
But I'm really excited. I've been using. So you guys are familiar with a brand called teff?
Yes,
Yeah.
in Jeddah.
Yeah, exactly.
You know in Jeddah?
The sour.
Yeah.
Wait, what is it? I don't know.
Teff flour. It's like a.
It's a grain.
grain.
It's a highly
Okay.
nutritious grain that Ethiopians make like a sourdough flatbread out of.
Oh, okay. I've had
Yeah,
Ethiopian food. It's the
Yes.
one they present with. Okay, got
So,
it.
So
so
good.
I've
So
recently
delicious.
learned about a teff penne pasta that they sell it like, because my thing is like, you know, I cannot eat weed, and they're I really try to listen to my body. Like there's certain things like I just can't digest. Like so even like a chickpea pasta, which is very popular, I don't digest it well. One, and number two, it doesn't really give a good chew.
I agree.
It gives, as you chewing, like, especially, I mean, I got used to it, but if I give that to someone who's not used to it, they're like, why is my pasta so, like, I don't know, powdery? You know what I mean? Like, I'm used to it, but then most people aren't. So the teff pasta has a chewiness to it, has an earthy flavor, don't get me wrong.
Love the earth.
I love the earth too, you know, but you can work with it. So I've been working with the teff pasta a lot. I'm a big fan of kelp noodles. I use
Love
that a
kelp
lot.
noodles. That's what I've been living by while being raw. Like, and I've been having like struggle raw meals because like I haven't really been planning this raw journey. I've just been like buying fresh stuff. And like I've been creating so much stuff just with the kelp noodles. I was putting pepperoncinis on it the other day. I was like, this is good. Like I was putting all types of stuff. Like kelp noodles is where it's at.
Kelp noodles. A lot of people know me for, it's funny because when I get in a groove and I start making it, I probably eat too much of this. I think a fried chicken style oyster mushroom.
I love those.
and I base it, the way I season it is based on like how I remember my mom's fried chicken.
That's the key.
And
That's the key.
That's the key.
And my mom, like, you know, in all fairness and all grace and credit to her, again, I come from the Caribbean, so her interpretation of like fried chicken, she literally created her own and she used a wet batter. And it was, but I used to love it as a child. So I really try to make it taste like my mom's.
What kind of flour do you use?
I use chickpea flour.
Okay, I want to get on that.
Chickpea flour, you know what kind of, like, so for instance, I believe it's Indian food. In Indian food, there's these little vegetable fritters called pakora. It's like these chickpea vegetable fritters. And if you eat them, you'll notice that the chickpea flour like has like a lot of flavor. So like that flavor being transferred to like the fried chicken.
We need to try that.
I know.
Our little tourist hearts can't take it.
I mean,
I'm
you're
literally
talking pasta
drooling
and
over here.
fried oysters.
We can set something up. And
Yes,
we
please.
We must.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're gonna have a taste test with Chef Korby.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So now like I have two questions. Like, how do you bring your Caribbean, Haitian culture into your cooking? And then also I want to know like how your family finally like understood like this is how he is, and like do they appreciate it now? Do you cook for them?
Wow, thanks. Those are great questions. The first question, how do I incorporate like my Haitian background into the food? one of the things I've learned about Haitian culinary is that it's very improvisational.
Oof, love that.
So people are making dishes out of what's available, right? So it's not necessarily following like a particular culinary guideline. It's just, this is what's available and make it taste good, right? So being that that's what I've observed in our culture, that informs a lot of what I'm doing. Like, make it taste good, make it taste good, without compromising any of the ingredients, right?
Yeah.
So, but I do plan on spending some time in Haiti really soon, literally on a culinary journey, where I'll probably try to go to at least 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different regions of the country, and really just form and develop relationships with street vendors, chefs, and really just understand it, really just observing and understanding how certain spices are fused. Yeah. Someone told me, not far, my father is from like the more northwestern side of the country. My mother is from the capital, Port-au-Prince. My father's from Gonaïves. If I'm not mistaken, in Gonaïves and maybe a little bit northwest of there, most of the country eats like a pretty much plant-based diet. Wow. I would have never known this. Wow. I would have never known this. And it's because
your ancestors. That's why you are the way you are.
Yeah, totally. And my grandfather was like a herbalist. Like in general, in Haitian culture, like there's a lot of natural medicine and herbalism happening in Haitian culture. So that's So I do plan on going to Haiti to like investigating. Like I think a lot of my traveling in the future is going to be about and again, I think I can observe someone cooking meat or whatever like that, but really in the name of like respecting culture, but also like learning. If someone gives me access, like I'm not the type of vegan who's gonna like, I don't necessarily love to see animals get slaughtered, right? I'm not trying to see that or anything like that. But I grew up with all of these elements in my home. So if someone's preparing a meat dish, I can actually observe them. It's not to say that I'm cheering that on, but in the name of learning, I believe I can do that. So I'll probably be doing stuff like that.
I mean, it's for a greater good, you know? It's because you want to like bring that to veganism. Like you want to inject your culture into veganism, and I think that's so important. It's like, of course, like veganism is boring if we have the same like burger spots and like, you know, like we have like 20 different burger spots in LA that are vegan, and we're at this point, I think we're all like, okay,
I want some vegan Haitian food.
Yeah,
that's what I
want.
want.
Haitian food. Yeah. Like I want to try something new,
something different,
and that's what's great about what you're doing is that you are going to be able to show people like, look, I can make this exact same thing just vegan. There's no cruelty. There's no, you know.
It tastes good.
Make
it taste good.
Make it taste good.
I love that.
That's the rule. Make it taste good.
I love that.
I love the challenge of that too. It's like just taking what's available and like finding a way to make it taste good. I bet you get so creative with that approach.
And I love how you still acknowledge like this is how you were brought up, and like you respect the culture that you were brought up in, but this is your take on all of that.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, it's funny because there's some really amazing Haitian chefs out there, but again, there's so many different interpretations on how to do things, you know? Yeah. So, you know, this is just what I do.
Wow.
Awesome. Great.
You asked me a second question that I'm trying
about
to
your family. Like,
how did they get, well, it's funny because I'm the person that, like, I don't know, like 15 years ago would come home and be like, hey, here's a bottle of this colon flush for you, this herbal colon flush. And my family is like, why are you giving this to me? And I'm like, trust me, it tastes terrible, smells terrible, but it's good.
Yeah.
And you want to know something? I think gradually I earned their respect because I think they've witnessed my health and wellness journey. I'm 42 years old and I've been overweight. I've been really skinny. I've been, you know, but I think right now I'm in the best health of my life. So I think they recognize that and they're open to information because maybe at the time, my sensitivity to a lot of the toxic food that's out here made it so I had to make a change earlier. Maybe a lot of my family members, they can tolerate the toxicity a little bit longer. So it's my sensitivity to the toxicity that made me kind of change earlier. But I bring that up because they're looking at me as a resource. So like, well, how about if we made this? What do I do if I need to make this? How do I use sea moss? How do I juice fast? I'm a big proponent of juice fasting. I think I'm gonna start one really soon. I'm a big proponent of eating watermelon. Like, you know. Like,
I don't like watermelon.
I
It tastes bad.
I didn't like it for a long time.
I think
It's one
maybe
of my
you had a
favorite
bad
things.
watermelon or something.
No, I've tried my entire life. Whenever watermelon has been presented to me since I was a child, I've tasted. The only time I liked it a little was when I was in Ecuador with ALESSANDRA, and we pulled on the side of the road and got a fresh watermelon, and her mom cut me a piece in the car, and I was like, oh, this one doesn't taste bad, and I was like, I ate it. But other than that, I don't like it.
I'll be honest, as a youngster, anything green, I didn't like avocados, I didn't like watermelon,
Oh my
I didn't
God.
like bananas. I like McDonald's and like grapes.
Not the
and
grapes.
cookies.
Red grapes.
Yeah.
Like, and peaches.
Yeah.
I did not like a lot of things, but our palate changes over time, you know, so much.
So as far as like, you know, your career goes, like, you know, what are things looking like currently for you? Where do things look like they're going in the future, maybe?
Oh, that's a
like,
great
what
question.
can we see from you?
I just got word that I may be traveling with, I can't name who the person is. I may be traveling with, you know, a famous person as they do a world tour, which is really exciting. But at the same time, the nature of business and things in LA, every so often this type of conversation happens to me. They don't always pan out. You know, I'm really hoping this pans out. And that's like
we're putting it out there.
We're giving you all the good energy.
Yeah, thank you, because this would be like a great opportunity to share my stuff. And you know, I enjoy engaging in business. I enjoy like forging new relationships. I have a cookbook that's in the works. It's called No Mistakes Allowed.
What's that name about?
Oh, that's a great question. So in a lot of ways, I identify as a product of hip hop culture. So believe it or not, like getting into Rastafari culture and getting into plant-based diet and all of that, hip hop, which is funny, I didn't even mention that, was sort of like what ushered me into that. Some people will be like, really? But no, 100%. That's what was the vehicle that led me there. And I'm proud to say that I grew up in authentic New York City hip hop culture from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Like it informed a lot of like the type of person that I am. So the title of the book is No Mistakes Allowed. And it's a play on words to me because I do believe in making mistakes. Like mistakes lead to the masterpiece. You know.
I needed to
write that down. I'm like,
I
hold on,
needed to hear that.
And I also like to say details make the masterpiece. Like I feel like mistakes lead to the masterpiece, but details also lead to the masterpiece. So for me, a lot of this cookbook is telling the story of how I got here. So a lot of like what I shared, but a little more in depth. Like, you know, some personal funny stories and some personal struggles. But a lot of it is also like encouraging people to take these recipes and explore. Don't necessarily feel pressured to make this recipe exactly as Chef Korby said you have to make it. Use Chef Korby's recipe to inspire some new traditions in your home. Like, you know, use it in that way. The title, No Mistakes Allowed, there's a song, Eric B. is President, and it's by Eric B. and Rakim. It's a famous hip hop classic song. And when you really break down, there's a line in the song where he says, Eric B. easy on the cut, no mistakes allowed, because to me, MC means move the crowd. When he says that in the song, there's a lot of things that makes me think deeply about. Like Eric B. and Rakim are like 80s street rappers, big gold chains. They're like tough street guys, right? And they're doing a folk art that involves improvisation. There's not necessarily, they didn't necessarily have, maybe they did, but in my mind, before they did a jam in the park, they didn't necessarily spend hours in rehearsal.
Yeah.
And I don't really foresee the conversation between Eric B. and Rakim telling them like, yo, don't make mistakes. I don't really see that. But I think when he makes that declaration on the song, it's a declaration that we're so steeped in this folk art, we could do it with no mistakes because we've been there already. We've been on the road of trying to get it to that place. Yeah. Again, maybe not rehearsals, but just this. We've improvised so much that we know how to do it at a high level, and even if we did make a mistake, you won't even know it. You won't even know it because it's wrapped into the magic.
Wow.
Which most skilled musicians and artists know how to. You know, okay, I made a mistake. Oh,
no one's gonna
no one's gonna notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
That's really cool.
I feel so fulfilled.
I know.
I feel like you just fed us your food.
Yo.
That's how I really feel. Like,
Yes. I mean,
up,
it really
we got
just
the
goes to
actual
show
food.
how deep this is for you. It's not just about the food. It really is, like you said, it's ingrained in your spirituality. And when you talk about it, it's so evident.
I feel so fed.
There's another thing I wanted to add. I'm really interested in the Web3 space right now. I haven't really made, and when I say Web3, all things pertaining to like NFTs, all things pertaining to like the metaverse and things of that nature. I find like the work I do, because I'm also a musician and a DJ and a painter, right? Also a fashion person, right? So all of these things,
All about the arts.
it's all about the arts and
Yeah.
being creative. And I find a lot of room when it comes to Web3 technology, and it's also when it comes to business, to sort of merge all these things and present all these things in one place. Like a few years ago, back in 2017, and I did this one time and people really enjoyed this, and I'm looking to probably bring this back in a new way, but I did a mini art, food, and music festival in the Arts District in downtown LA called Plant Based, based spelled BASSD. And it was literally local vendors, local artists, and local musicians all converging and just sort of having this sensory, creative expression experience centered around food, art, and music. And again, like I'm all about threading all of those things together and presenting that. So look in the future, the next thing that might happen might be some type of tasting event where people buy NFTs, or I might be giving away NFTs, or if you buy an NFT to this event, you unlock unique aspects connected to the event. Like maybe you buy an NFT for my event and it gives you entry to the tasting, but that also gives you access to me coming to your home and doing a demonstration or something like that. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's very
We're
creative.
gonna need a demonstration in our kitchen.
You guys are great.
Wow.
So I would love to hear, I know we could probably talk to you forever.
Yeah,
So we
literally.
probably should wrap it up soon, but I did want to hear, because you said you worked with a lot of athletes and stuff, was there one story in your mind that stands out of like maybe an athlete who wasn't like super sold on the plant-based thing and like maybe there was a meal that kind of changed their mind, anything like that?
I haven't had that, but what I have had is, I guess sometimes like pro athletes, their trainers have different philosophies about what they should be eating.
Yeah.
But what I've found is that when a pro athlete kind of finds me, it's oftentimes they're like being rebellious and they're saying to themselves, well, I need to try something else. I want to try something more natural. And I've had people, again, approach me with a lot of excitement about incorporating sea moss into their diet. They're like, yo, dude, I want you to get me on the sea moss. I want you, I want you to get me onto the juicing. Oh, I want to start juice fasting. So I've had that more or less. Sometimes just with clients in general, and I do my best to satisfy what a client is looking for. Like a client might want me to cater something and they might want me to use an ingredient that I'm like, nah, I don't use this. And then when I say an ingredient, it's not like a non-vegan thing. It'll be like they want me to use like white bread or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I don't do that. But I don't know, throughout the journey, like, there's always going to be little things like that come up. But yeah.
So what do you do what happens when you say, oh, I don't use that ingredient?
I do my best to stand firm on that, but if the person absolutely feels like, yo, we need finger sandwiches on white bread, like, can you please do that? I'll satisfy that need, but I'll buy like a really high quality bread. But sometimes I feel kind of strange putting my name on that because I'm like, that's not, I'm letting it, I'm doing this as a favor to you, but this, like, I don't want this to be like a constant thing. You know?
As an artist, I strongly understand and respect the fact that you have to, I understand that, but you have to respect an artist's artistry. Like, I'm very much like, when I hire a makeup artist or a hairstylist or a chef or whatever it is, like, I'll be like, this is my idea, but do what I want your creativity. Do what you do.
You're the expert.
This is how I want my hair, but like, I want you to put your taste on it,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's why they hired you, right?
Yeah.
Because they like your food, your art, your,
Correct. I think sometimes it gets a little muddy once people have booked you and they pay the down payment and all that type of stuff. People are like, okay, now I got you. Now I need
Abide by these
Contracts are important.
Yeah.
So, if you just lay things out contractually, and as an entrepreneur, I'm still learning and growing, and I try to look at everything happening exactly as it's supposed to.
I love that.
So even like moving forward, I may be a lot stricter. Like I have been pretty strict, but again, there's clients that come up that make these requests, but like I could just tell them no, I don't do that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now I'm like gonna go home and like research like Rastafari. Like,
I know, I can't wait for your cookbook. The fact that you're injecting so much, like it's almost gonna be like it sounds like a biography and a cookbook at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, that's so fun. Like, I mean, you know, there's so many recipes out there right now, but to like be able to read about somebody's life and their experiences and like what led them to this dish is so special. So
yeah, and I'll be honest with you, like one of the reasons why I think it's important for me to always experience like really great food. Like I always try to reinterpret like, you know, things, you know, and hey, maybe a certain percentage of the time I'm spot on, but I don't know if I'm really spot on always trying to do the spot on thing. Like, you know, I think a lot of times I'm just trying to create something adjacent to that thing I enjoy.
Exactly.
That's my thing.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Like, so.
Yeah, that's like how I've always been too. Like I've never been a follow the recipe person unless it's like baking, but even then I might add a little more vanilla or cinnamon, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like even with recipes, like I like if I don't know how to make something, just because I've never made it vegan before and like I research a recipe, I'll just be like, okay, this is kind of the basis of it, okay, and then I'm gonna just do my own thing.
Of course.
Like I never just like they said like a fourth teaspoon salt. What? Baby, I need way more than that.
I've been there.
Like stuff like that where you're just like, what?
I've been there.
Do my thing.
Like if you look at their recipe, it's just a formula to being bland. But if you just kind of add your tweaks, it's like great. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But again, that's an example of like the recipe sort of being a guidepost for you to create your own interpretation of like how it should come out.
Yeah.
Like, but I do think it's nice when you do a recipe and you do it to a T and you're like, this is perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, this is exact, that's a nice feeling too.
It is.
Yeah. All right, I think we should end on a fun question. So if you could eat one meal for the rest of your life, you had nothing, like you could not eat anything else, just one meal, what would it be?
My goodness. One meal for the rest of my life. I get bored really quickly of a lot of things.
Same.
Well,
like, you know, what's your like top meal where you're like, oh, I could really eat
That you
this
keep
like
all
all
the
the time.
time.
I could eat this all the time. It would probably be some type of wild rice bowl with like mushrooms and maybe there's some type of like chip in there and guacamole. I know the answer, guacamole.
Oh.
I love guacamole, and I find ways to put guacamole in just about everything.
Oh
Like,
no!
that.
In pasta?
I mean, I maybe not. I haven't done that, but I'm not against it. Like, you know, just put a
top?
You just
Yeah.
get an idea.
Yeah.
See, that's the way my mind works, though.
Yeah.
It's like, you know,
Do you ever go to a Mexican restaurant with friends? This happens to me sometimes where like I'm like waiting for someone to order guacamole and no one does, and I'm like, does anyone want guacamole? Are we gonna actually eat here and
Not get guacamole?
And it's funny because something as simple as guacamole, there's an infinite amount of interpretations of how this is done. Like, people like my guacamole, which is informed by my places and spaces I travel to, right? There's a whole, my guacamole is an expression of all these different things I've experienced. But I might go someplace, again, to a Mexican restaurant, and they make the guacamole right in front of my face, and I'm like, I've never had guacamole quite like this.
Yeah.
And this is great.
Yeah.
You know, this is their interpretation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank you,
spending
ladies.
time with us. This was so fun. I mean, we really do have to have you back. And
Yeah, we
definitely
do.
we got to get some food on.
I would love that. I would
Yes.
love that.
We are
When the
holding you
cookbook
to
comes
it.
out, you have to come back
I would
and
love
like
that.
let everybody know. So
Yeah.
exciting.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we're
y'all
so
are amazing.
excited for you,
Yeah.
just to see you continue to do you.
We will link where you can find Chef Korby in the description box down below. So definitely go give him a follow, give him some love, and tell him that you saw him here.
Yeah.
So we'll also link our individual social medias in the description box down below as well. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Join the Facebook group. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And we'll see you next week for another episode of the Vegan Beef.
Bye.